With Colt Cabana's return to AEW this week on Dynamite, reportedly those in WWE are paying attention and showing some interest in a possible CM Punk return. We've got the latest on that. Of course, Crown Jewel is tomorrow and there is several security concerns. We've got the latest on all of it and WWE being in touch with the State Department in the United States about if the event can indeed go ahead. Sami Zayn and MVP do not travel to Crown Jewel. Got the reasons behind that. Vince McMahon, could he return to WWE now that the investigation into him is complete? We've got details on a possible return of the former WWE chairman. RK Bro has been split up for a little bit of time with Randy Orton being out with an injury, but were there plans for Orton to turn on Matt Riddle upon his return? Well, the latest on Bodie Haywood's release from WWE, and an interesting one, as Sasha Banks and Naomi are pulled from a festival amid scheduling conflicts. All this and more in this WWE news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE as we're about 24 hours away from Crown Jewel in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But we've got to start off talking about some AEW news. I know, Owen, I thought this was a WWE news video. It is. But this is quite an interesting one because a popular wrestling Twitter account, an insider wrestling account must be said, WrestleVotes, very reputable, has tweeted yesterday. This is absolutely fascinating. Quote, Colt Cabana showing up on Dynamite last night didn't go unnoticed in Stamford. That's all I'll say on that right now. Now, of course, Colt Cabana returned on Wednesday night against Chris Jericho. He was the mystery former Ring of Honor champion to be facing off against the Ocho for the Ring of Honor World Championship. He lost, and it marked the first return of Cabana to AEW television since March of this year. A lot's happened in that period of time. At one point, it was believed that Cabana would be leaving AEW before he signed a contract extension to perform on the Ring of Honor brand within the company. The belief backstage was that due to CM Punk and his influence in AEW, Cabana was being forced out of the company, or at the very least, moved to one side. As I mentioned, it was his first appearance since March of this year when he returned on AEW Dynamite this week. And a lot of people have perceived Cabana's return to television and to AEW's main storylines as a sign that indeed CM Punk is done with AEW. The latest we have heard is that Punk is negotiating a buyout of his contract with Tony Khan after the infamous Brawl Out incident, in which he brawled along with Ace Steel with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, resulting in all of them being suspended. An investigation into that was conducted and has been completed. Ace Steel has been fired from the company. The Elite are on their way back to AEW television with 2 weeks of teasing their return to AEW programming very soon. And of course, Punk, as I mentioned, as far as we know, I guess is still suspended. At the very least, he's on the sidelines. He tore his triceps in the main event of All Out against Jon Moxley. He subsequently had surgery and is reported to be out of action for around 9 months' time, but it would appear it's the final time that we have seen CM Punk inside of an AEW ring. I've spoken about this quite a lot recently, that I know that there's been kind of conflicting reports a little bit about WWE's real interest in CM Punk. WrestleVotes previously in an interview with Give Me Sports said that this past July, when Paul Levesque was kind of, not asked, but, what was the feeling of CM Punk possibly returning to WWE? The response was Triple H wants little, if anything, to do with CM Punk and even less to do with Phil Brooks. We know their history. We know they don't like each other. Paul Levesque, WWE's chief content officer, was in that infamous meeting between CM Punk and Vince McMahon, in which CM Punk said to Vince McMahon, I'm out of here, I'm walking, I'm leaving. And he never came back. That was in January of 2014. And subsequently, they've had stuff to say about each other. Reportedly, they never really liked each other anyway. But it was then reported a couple of weeks ago that Triple H's stance on that may have softened a little bit, because it's not just a gimmick with him, it's what's best for business and what can make WWE money and what can make an impact. And as I've said, I those people that have said, oh, he's never going to go back to WWE, Triple H and CM Punk hate each other and CM Punk hates WWE. Well, CM Punk maybe has a new enemy now in AEW. And as I've said, I don't think CM Punk will want his wrestling career to end in the way that it's ended in AEW. And I think he's got, as Fightful Select recently reported, I think he's got the wrestling bug back. And I think he'll want to prove that he's not this toxic influence that has been portrayed of him. Make no mistake, I think CM Punk is difficult to work with. And I think that he probably has had clashes with people backstage in AEW. And people clearly clearly are taking sides over this issue. You're either Team Punk or you're Team Cabana, Elite, etc. And Tony Khan has picked sides. He's been forced to pick sides, and he's picked the side of the Elite and Colt Cabana. And that's why Cabana's back on television. That's why the Elite are returning to television. But at the same time, there are still a lot of people that like Punk backstage. There's still a lot of people that say that he was a leader and they enjoyed working with him. So I think it's Punk's prerogative to get back into pro wrestling, prove that he can be easy to work with and deal with. And as I've said, I think WWE is the best environment for him right now because it's more structured and there are more layers and it's not the inmates running the asylum. And maybe he can get that WrestleMania main event that he craved and he can end his career on his terms and achieve what he really wanted to achieve in WWE. And as I mentioned, that's the WrestleMania main event. And stranger things have happened. This year is just evidence of stranger things have happened in pro wrestling. Anything's possible, and I don't think you can rule out a Punk return. It's not going to happen this year, probably not till midway through next year, and even that's going to depend on the recovery from his torn triceps, his buyout from AEW. In terms of his contract, is there going to be a non-compete? That's been a hold-up in recent negotiation. Punk doesn't want one, seemingly because he realizes, actually, I want to go back to WWE. I want to continue to wrestle, or I want to do something. So it's interesting, certainly, that this report suggests that WWE took notice of Cabana showing up on Dynamite, essentially suggesting that, they're like, that definitely means Punk's out of here. Punk's out of AEW, and maybe we'll make an offer. Maybe we make some contact, or between now, and this is maybe the important thing too, because Punk can't wrestle until next year, you've got now about 9 months, 8 months, maybe a bit less than that, 7 months since the incident took place. So you've got about 6 or 7 months to mend those fences and build those bridges. And issues that you do have, you can open that line of dialogue now because you can't come back and wrestle anyway. So let's fix this. Let's fix the issues that we've had, and let's get our issues out on the table. And let's start making waves to possibly pave a return to the company. So keep an eye on that one. Certainly, I'm sure it will bubble on in the weeks and months to come. Crown Jewel, of course, is tomorrow in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and in addition to all of the conversation that's always about these Saudi events, there's been a lot of concern heading into the latest premium live events in Saudi Arabia because there's been a lot of security concerns here. And an update has emerged on WWE's response to the situation involving a reported threat to Saudi Arabia. As previously reported, the Wall Street Journal published a report detailing Saudi Arabia sharing intelligence of a warning of an imminent attack from Iran in the country. It must be said, Iran have subsequently denied any plans of an attack on Saudi Arabia, but Fightful Select Sean Rossap is reporting that WWE remains on, quote, high alert amid attack concerns. As of the time of this recording, given the fact they're over in Saudi Arabia at the moment, Crown Jewel is still scheduled to go ahead. WWE is also set to hold a press conference in Riyadh, the host city of Crown Jewel, at 10 a.m. Eastern Time today on November 4th. WWE names have continued to arrive in Saudi Arabia ahead of the premium live events and have begun promotional duties. Bayley shared an image of her arrival with Damage Control earlier on November 3rd. WWE has been monitoring the situation since news broke of the threat to Saudi Arabia. As I mentioned, WWE Crown Jewel is still currently scheduled to take place in Riyadh on November 5th. It remains to be seen if the event will be postponed as a result of the attack warning. Meanwhile, though, WWE has put emergency security contingencies in place and will be monitoring the situation closely. And as I mentioned, and I kind of speculated on this previously, but it just makes a lot of sense. You've got, an American company, American citizens, and an American workforce traveling over to a foreign country whereby there could be diplomatic issues, or maybe not diplomatic issues, but certainly security issues that would require a response from the US State Department, and that's essentially what we're seeing here. PW Insider is reporting that WWE officials have been in regular contact with the US State Department. The report also says that both Stephanie McMahon and Paul Triple H Levesque will be present for the event, with a local press conference, as I mentioned, scheduled for Friday. As the threatened area isn't actually planned to be anywhere near Riyadh, the event is currently scheduled to go on as previously planned. Even before the current threats came to light, WWE reportedly had contingencies in place to protect their talent during the time spent in the country, which PW Insider reports includes communications with private security firms. It would appear that WWE has beefed up security for their talent and their employees and their representatives in there. Of course, it wouldn't be the first time that they've had some issues when it comes to these events in Saudi Arabia. Of course, late 2018, there was a lot of political controversy heading into that event. Back in 2019, WWE talent found themselves stuck in Saudi Arabia for an entire day following the second Crown Jewel event. Whilst it's never been made exactly clear what happened, the official word that the delay was due to repairs required for the plane, while rumors spread that the incident had to do with the money owed by the Saudi government to WWE, a rumor which WWE denied. It was certainly it's an insane story that I don't know we'll ever actually really know the truth behind. Now, tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran have been present for years, with Saudi Arabia cutting off diplomatic ties to its regional rival back in 2016, and a loose truce between the two countries expiring in early October. Iran is currently experiencing a great deal of civil unrest as protests against the government's treatment of females ramp up, while the government continues to crack down. As I mentioned, this has been the attack, the rumored attack has been denied. The Wall Street Journal has released a new report with an update noting that Iran has denied planning an attack on Saudi Arabia or Iraq. This is what the article had to say. Iran on Wednesday denied it was planning an attack on Saudi Arabia or Iraq amid civil unrest, calling for the downfall of the Islamic Republic, insisting that it was trying to build constructive relations with its Middle East neighbors. The statement came a day after the Wall Street Journal reported that Saudi Arabia had shared intelligence with Washington indicating an imminent attack from Iran, putting the American military and others in the Middle East on an elevated alert level. Saudi officials said their intelligence showed Iran is poised to carry out attacks on both the kingdom and Erbil, Iraq, and the White House said the Saudi information was worrisome. So, as I mentioned, this is really, really scary and really alarming stuff. The hope is, and I guess the feeling is, that the event will go ahead tomorrow and we won't have any issues, but it still is absolutely a massive concern. And my thing always is the priority. The priority has to be the safety and the safety of everyone involved, not just obviously the performers, not just the employees, not just the crew members, but also the fans and attendants, everyone. So it's a really worrisome situation, but it would appear that things are going to go ahead as planned, and we'll, fingers crossed, everything will go ahead with no issue. Speaking of Crown Jewel, as to be expected, there are some stars that haven't travelled and will not be appearing at the show. Ahead of the premium live event Crown Jewel, WWE stars, as I mentioned, have made their way to Riyadh in time for the event tomorrow. One popular WWE name, though, will not be making the journey. As per Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, honorary Uce Sami Zayn will not be going to Crown Jewel. This is not a surprise. Meltzer's reporting, quote, Sami Zayn is not going to Saudi Arabia because he is Syrian, and that was an issue on both sides, both his and Saudi Arabia. Kevin Owens also hasn't gone in the past for a number of reasons, one of which is loyalty to Zayn. Again, this isn't a surprise or anything new because Zayn has not been at any of WWE's previous visits to Saudi Arabia either. His absence this time around will be interesting, of course, because Roman Reigns is in the main event against Logan Paul for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. The honorary Uce has been featured in hilarious in-ring spots on recent editions of SmackDown, centering around tensions between himself and Jey Uso. It's going to be interesting to see if Sami Zayn's absence from Crown Jewel will be worked into some sort of angle. It could possibly be addressed on SmackDown tonight, which of course is the day before Crown Jewel. It's pre-taped because of the travel to Saudi Arabia, but we could, I guess, see an incident, or I could see some kind of angle backstage where they say, Sami, you don't have to come, or Sami's banned, or Jey Uso prevents Sami from attending, something like that. So we could definitely see something like that. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns' opponent, Logan Paul, may have some backup in the form of his brother, Jake Paul, who's said to be attending. Triple H did tease that as well. But Sami Zayn isn't the only person who isn't going to be attending, because MVP won't be accompanying Amos for his match against Braun Strowman at the Crown Jewel Premium Live event. According to PW Insider, MVP was not among the WWE personnel that arrived in Saudi Arabia Thursday ahead of Saturday's show in Riyadh. The report did not specify the reason for MVP not traveling to Saudi Arabia, or if there are plans for him to travel at the last minute. For what it's worth, though, MVP did not travel to Saudi Arabia for the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event in February earlier this year either. At the time of that event, Bobby Lashley, who was still aligned with MVP, had defended his WWE Championship against Brock Lesnar, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Austin Theory, and Riddle inside of the Elimination Chamber structure. So, maybe again, a bit like Sami Zayn, it's out of principle, it's out of a situation whereby they don't feel comfortable attending the event, or, you know, for their own personal reasons, political reasons. Again, we don't really get political on here, but that could be a situation. As mentioned, there have been several WWE stars that have refused to participate or refused to travel for a variety of reasons. I know John Cena, early on after doing a couple of the shows for WWE, said he would not be returning or doing those shows. Again, Sami Zayn hasn't appeared on any of the shows due to his background, and some people, out of loyalty to Sami Zayn or uncomfortableness performing in Saudi Arabia, have said no. So that could be a situation for MVP. Vince McMahon. The investigation into the former WWE chairman and CEO is complete, and it's led to a lot of people speculating, could Vince McMahon return? Well, in a press release addressing their financial results for the third quarter of 2022, WWE released the following statement regarding the special investigation into former WWE chairman Vince McMahon. Quote, "The special committee investigation is now complete and the special committee has been disbanded. Management is working with the board to implement the recommendations of the special committee related to the investigation for the 3 and 9 month periods ended September 30, 2022. The company consolidated pre-tax results include the impact of a $17.7 million and $19.4 million, respectively, associated with certain costs related to the investigation." Basically saying that this investigation cost around $20 million, and also the hush money payments were about $20 million as well. This entire Vince McMahon scandal cost WWE nearly $40 million. It's insane. The statement did not elaborate on when exactly the investigation was completed or what the recommendations the special committee had made to WWE coming out of the investigation was. It's also unknown when or if the findings from said investigation will be made public. The investigation, of course, into McMahon began earlier this summer, coming to light thanks to the Wall Street Journal story that revealed WWE's board of directors were looking into several alleged payments by McMahon and former WWE head of talent relations John Laurinaitis made allegedly to cover up several scandals. Laurinaitis was let go by WWE sooner after, while McMahon would ultimately retire from WWE in July while still maintaining majority shares of WWE stock. As I mentioned, it led to some people thinking that McMahon could return. This is what Sean Ross Sapp had to say on Fightful Select. It was a quote at the end of all of this. It said, "Mr. McMahon can effectively exercise control over our affairs." And that was mentioned in the company's filing on Wednesday, which led to some people reading that to believe that he could possibly head back to the company. One WWE spokesperson was contacted for comment by Sean Ross Sapp and said to Fightful that Vince McMahon was, quote, done, and would not be returning to the roles that were taken over by Triple H and several others. Beyond that, another WWE higher-up said that morale in WWE over the last few months has been the highest they've seen it in over a decade that they've been around. Another longtime WWE employee said that while they initially had reservations, hesitations, and fears regarding McMahon's departure and him possibly quickly coming back, that's no longer the case. They went as far as to say that everyone in charge realizes that would be a major step back for the company, and that today's filing instilled even more confidence in those that thought McMahon leaving would be a blow to the company. And that is really what is quite fascinating about all of this. For years, the line that was peddled about Vince McMahon is, well, the day that he leaves or the day that he passes away and he's no longer involved in the company, WWE will crumble. They'll crumble. They won't make any money. The stock price will tank, and nobody's going to be takeover. It's going to be chaos. And WWE's been fine. They've been fine. Life moves on. People took up the role from him, and maybe, actually, just maybe, Vince McMahon, like a lot of people were saying for several years, was becoming a detriment to the company. Wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know? Let's talk a little bit about RK Bro. Of course, Randy Orton's still out of action with a back injury. He's going to be out for the remainder of the year, and we don't actually know when he's going to be back. One of their biggest stars, WWE, Randy Orton, the Viper, has not appeared on WWE TV since late May. During his most recent run, Orton teamed with Matt Riddle, of course, as RK Bro. In their last match together, Orton and Riddle lost the Raw Tag Team Championships to SmackDown Tag Team Champions Jimmy and Jey Uso, with the Usos becoming WWE's undisputed Tag Team Champions. Orton left to deal with a severe back injury that is expected to sideline him for the rest of the year. Since Orton's injury, Riddle, I just merged those together there, Riddle has continued his partnership with the Viper on screen, mentioning him several times throughout his absence. Riddle's rivals, including Seth freaking Rollins, have even mocked him for his partnership with Orton, teasing that a big payoff to Orton's return would happen. According to WrestleVotes, the plan for Orton's return involved the veteran immediately turning on his tag team partner. The report mentions, however, that those plans were, quote, drawn up when Vince McMahon was in charge and not current Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque, so things could have changed. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't seem like Orton will be returning to the ring anytime soon. A recent report said there's actually quite a lot of concern in WWE over the severity of his back injury. Clearly, the partnership between Orton and Riddle, the payoff was always going to be Orton turning on Riddle at some point, but now I would still think that probably that's the end game here. But we don't know when Orton's going to be back, so we don't know when he's going to come back and when he's eventually going to make that turn. I guess now, already, you start looking at WrestleMania season, and that would be the hope. We'll have to wait and see. Bodie Haywood was a surprise name as part of these NXT releases earlier this week, and there reportedly was more to Bodie Haywood's release from WWE than meets the eye. According to Dave Meltzer, on the latest Wrestling Observer radio show, the main reason an NXT talent is released is because they showed a lack of progression. Meltzer said that did not only Haywood fit into that category, but there were also other issues. WWE reportedly was not satisfied with Haywood's work ethic, specifically with him not showing up on time for WWE events. So, as we kind of spoke about previously, it had been reported that more meets the eye, and apparently that's the case. They were obviously not happy about his progression, but also on top of that, he was had a bad work ethic, according to those within WWE. Finally, as the speculation continues about Sasha Banks and Naomi possibly heading back to WWE, Sasha Banks and Naomi have been pulled from the upcoming Vulture Festival due to a, quote, unforeseen scheduling conflict, according to the event's organizers. On Thursday, the organizers of the Pop Culture Festival sent out the following notice to fans who had purchased tickets to watch the former WWE superstars in action, saying, due to an unforeseen scheduling conflict, Mercedes Varnado and Trinity Fatu are no longer able to participate in their event on Saturday, November 12th at 8 p.m. So, a lot of people are speculating, unforeseen scheduling conflict, what does that mean? Fans on social media believe Banks and Naomi pulling out of the event could be directly related to their rumored WWE comeback. It was reported earlier this week that Banks was backstage at a WWE house show, or live event rather, in Mexico City last weekend. The first instance of the boss attending a WWE event since her infamous walkout on May 16. According to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, Banks attending a WWE event was a clear sign that, quote, relations between the WWE and Banks aren't negative right now. So, could this mean that around, when was this meant to happen? Saturday, November 12th. That's around the time. That's a couple of weeks, I think, before Survivor Series. Could we see the boss return to WWE around Survivor Series time? We'll have to wait and see. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.